Okay, here we go. This next session, we're going to start getting a little bit more into the details of book writing. So first of all, don't freak out. I'm gonna help you through kind of my strategy, what I do, what I think will help you guys, and what I'm going to call book outlining. So before we get into book writing, you got a book outline. That's the step one. That's where it begins. That's where you get this thing started. Okay. So here's what book outlining is. In all of my books, I've done this. Okay. This has been the approach that I feel like has really helped me. And really probably where I learned it, this outlining approach was actually built off of my experience for years in preaching and teaching and putting kind of lectures, speeches, messages together. Learning how to outline my message and talking actually is what then I translated that into writing, and it's helped a lot of people that I've explained this to, and it's how I write today. Literally, before I got into this session of recording, I literally outlined a new book that I'm working on. It's top secret. I'm not going to tell you about. um, but it really helped me. So here's what outlining it is. Instead of going, okay, I'm going to try to write this whole book, and I'm just going to open up a Word doc or Google Doc and just start getting after it from start to finish. That approach, that mentality, could end up causing a real confusion. The book could go all kinds of different directions based on how you're feeling that day. You may not really head in the direction that you're hoping to. So book outlining is actually a great way, an effective way to write, and actually write faster. Get a book done sooner. So here's what book outlining means. Instead of just going, okay, I'm just going to start writing on the concept and see where it flows, I'm actually going to start by not writing the book. I'm going to start by writing the table of contents. Okay. So literally what I'm looking at is this. This is what I'm going to write. This book here happened to have a lot more chapters. Book like this has a few less chapters, more, like I actually have sections and, kind of, key chapters. But what I start by doing is going, okay, whatever the topic is, whatever the general direction I want to go, maybe I have a title for the book, maybe I don't. This book started, I was just calling it Obscurity. I didn't literally change this title until later. But what I start by doing is either in a document, my phone, scratch paper, I start going, okay, I'm going to write that table of contents first. I want to know what are the big rocks I'm hoping to say. If someone's going to ask me about fitness or health or finance or marriage or parenting or construction or sales, whatever the topic that I'm writing about, communication and speaking, whatever that topic is, I'm going to start by getting the big rocks down. Okay. What are the key things? So I'm going to write them out. What would be the main things I want to make sure I have in this book when I write it? That mindset, then, I'm not trying to say what are all the things I want to say, but just what will be the big things. And those big things are going to tend to become basically my chapters. I may shape the wording a little as I go. I may add a chapter, take away a chapter. All those things could be reality, and that's fine. But I'm going to start by saying, what are the big things? So I'm going to list them out. Okay, I think these are the 7 big things. These are the 6 big things. These are the 15 big things. Whatever it might be. Maybe later on I might combine a chapter. I may multiply a chapter out, make it 2. But I'm starting by the big thing. And really, these are kind of like my chapter headings then. Once I feel like I kind of got my big rocks now, before I move on, my next step is actually just to go, do I like the flow? One of the things I work a lot with myself in preaching, when I'm teaching others, is the flow. Does it flow? Does it have a logical progression of thought? That means that does my point 1 lead to my point 2, to my point 3, to my conclusion? Does my chapter 1 make sense as chapter 1? And does it lead me then to chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, right? Does it flow? Does it make sense? So when I'm just in that really simple big rock outline form, sort of like my 20,000 foot view of my book, allows me to really step back, take a look at what's going on, and really see it in the big overview. This allows me then to adjust, right? I'm using words like, my hand motions like this because I literally might, either in physical paper or digitally, I'm going, actually, that big rock I kind of put down as sort of chapter 1 actually might be better. Chapter 5, I need to bring this chapter up, right? So I'm kind of, before I start trying to write a whole book and then move chapters later, my goal is going to be as best as I can, kind of get my direction dialed in this big view. Once I feel like, okay, I got the big rocks, I've got like the flow, um, feeling pretty good. Like this book outline feels pretty good. My next step, again, not starting to write. I'm still in outlining format. Okay. My next step is now I'm going to take each of those big rocks or chapter headings and I'm going to add 3 subpoints. Okay. I'm going to add 3 subpoints to each of them. Not writing paragraphs, not writing big concepts like fully fleshing ideas out. I'm just going to write 3 subpoints to each of these chapter headings. Okay. That's the focus. That's the goal. That's what I'm getting at right away in this moment. 3 subpoints. This allows me to get a little bit more granular as far as the big direction of the book without fully getting lost in a chapter yet. So I'm kind of creating potential chapter outlines, but I'm still staying in this 20,000-foot view because I may flesh a couple subpoints out and realize, well, that subpoint I have under chapter 2, actually, when I look at it, it makes a little bit more sense under the last chapter or, moving something around. Once I get those 3 sub points or secondary kind of rocks dialed in underneath each chapter, now I'm able to look back, still looking at the big view. And again, I can tweak, I can move things around. Now I've gotten a little bit more of an idea of where this book might go. It may give me a sense of going, okay, I need to move this up forward more, back more. Man, actually, it don't even make sense in this, or actually I need to combine, or I need to, man, that sub thought actually, shoot, now I think about it, that sub thought actually should be a main thought. I'm going to make that its own chapter, right? All those things can kind of flesh out. I'm still in this big view. Once I feel like I've got my big rocks, I got my 3 sub thoughts underneath each chapter. Now I'm going to take that kind of table of contents now, expanded sort of table of contents. I'm going to move it over into like my Word doc. And now literally I'm going to create a page break. Okay. I'm going to create a page break after each big rock and my 3 sub thoughts. And so now literally, whether it's, I got a 7 chapter book, 10 chapter book, 5 chapter, 15 chapter, whatever my book length is, now I've got a Word document that kind of breaks out these chapters now, and it kind of is a little bit like the buckets I talked about. Now I kind of have buckets for each chapter with the main thought that's probably going to be my chapter title, and then 3 sub thoughts. And this gives me kind of a direction for each chapter. Now I'm going to begin the writing chapter, or this is sort of like my skeleton, time to put some meat on the bones. Okay, right? The beauty of this approach is that now I've got a vision for my book. I don't have the whole thing written. I don't got every concept developed out, but I've got the big picture vision for my book. This allows me then, when I go to begin writing, to have a vision for that writing time. Okay. So I may feel really inspired around chapter 1. And so I'm going to jump in there and I start, looking at those sub thoughts that I initially put in there, and I'm just going to start writing. What's the next thought that comes to my mind related to that? Maybe I'm building out that sub thought. Maybe a new sub thought comes to me. Throw a few paragraphs in. But let's say now I kind of hit a little bit of writer's block, or my initial thoughts are coming out. Then, but maybe I've got a thought on chapter 4. I'm going to jump over to chapter 4, and because I've got a vision, I've got a bucket for that chapter, I'm able to jump over there, throw some thoughts in without it completely being redundant, repeating myself, getting the book thrown off, forgetting that thought, that I had in mind. I'm able to go over there, jump in, create, write, and then, okay, now I'm on to the next one. And actually, that's how I would originally encourage you to write, is go through each of the chapters and start just putting your big thoughts in there, into those buckets, each chapter, starting to flesh out initial paragraphs that come. Maybe you've already written, blogged, or your dissertation paper, or whatever you've got. You've already actually hit some of these topics before. Now take all that content maybe that you've gotten, illustrations, ideas, start throwing them into those buckets of the chapters. Not fully laid out well, not in order necessarily, but you're just throwing. And think of them like each chapter now kind of becomes a bit of like a lump of clay that you're going to shape into something beautiful as you go. But right now it's just thoughts. I'm chucking them in, throwing ideas in. And now once I did that, I do that for all the chapters. Think of it as sort of like, lumps of clay in each one. And then I'm going to start going through and fine tuning as I go. This is sort of the writing process. Initially, I'm outlining. Now, my next step is I'm just throwing a bunch of thoughts, concepts, research, stats, data into each chapter that kind of relates, taking some of my other writings or communication, throwing them in there. And I kind of have a lot of thoughts, not a lot of major form, but it's still in a bit of a flow because I took the time in the outlining process. Now I'm going to begin to go through little by little, and this is the writing process. And I'm going to describe a little bit like you're doing multiple passes on the book. Sometimes with digital printing, to use this example, you'll have the printer now will just kind of print all the colors at once. It just spits out full color. But in bigger presses, even now, I believe, or for sure before, you'd have a piece of paper that would go through the print and it would lay down each color because the multiple colors build to form the one picture. So it's CMYK in printing: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K is black. And so the page would go through and lay down the cyan, the blue color. Then it would go through again, lay down the magenta, the kind of red tones. Then it would go down again and would lay down the yellow. Then it would go and lay down the black. And each pass through, the image would get more clear, more specific, more beautiful, more vibrant. And it all kind of puts together. Each pass through gets better and better. The same thing with a book. What I do is I try not to get too caught up in being perfect or done with a chapter before I move on to the next one. And don't get perfectionist on all the right phrasing or the titles or the subtitles or anything like that within each chapter. You're just kind of doing another run through it. So you put all the big initial thoughts each chapter. And now I go through and I start fine tuning. But I might hit an edge and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this chapter for today. For now, I'm going to go to the next one and I'll do another pass through the whole book. Then what do? Go back to the beginning again. Do another pass through the whole book. Every time I'm catching new things that either new ideas I want to add or things that don't quite make sense, I'm going to cut out. Right. And then just like I have the big picture view of the whole book, as I get more and more fine-tuned into the chapter, now I'm going to start looking at that chapter and going, does this flow? Does, the thoughts I added in here and shaped out as I went, is this a good flow of this chapter? Do I need to reorganize this chapter a little bit to make it make a little bit more sense, right? So this is the process. This is the fine-tuning process. This is the outlining and writing process. And you're just going to keep going through. I'm going to talk about editing and design in a little bit in my next session. But in this session, don't worry too much about having all the things right, saying it all perfectly, having it fully structured. Right now, you're working through big rocks, main concepts, and you're starting to fine tune. Every pass through, it's getting more and more clear. Every pass through, getting more and more clear. And that is what your goal is to go, okay, is this making sense? Does it flow well? Do I have all the key concepts? Am I missing any major piece? And the more you fine tune it, that will then allow you to be able to see, okay, yeah, this chapter needs a little bit extra, or no, you know what? I've said too much in here. I'm good, right? As you're shaping out your book, sometimes people might say, well, how long does a book need to be? My books are a varying range. And sometimes, depending on what you want to charge for a book, maybe will determine the length it needs to be. But I would really encourage you to not focus on the length of your book as in, I've got to get it to 100 pages or 150 pages or 250 pages. Don't worry about the length of it. Worry about saying what needs to be said. Okay. And if that takes you 75 pages, make it a 75-page book. Nobody's gonna be mad about a quick read. If that takes you 250 pages, it's gotta be 250 pages. But say what needs to be said, say it well, say it clearly, say it specifically, say it in a way that people can understand, grab a hold of it, walk it out, apply it to their life, live out what you're trying to get them, and don't worry about feeling like you gotta say everything. Don't worry about saying not enough, too much. Just write it until you said it, right? Take it through all the passes that needs to go, chip away, sculpting out this clay of each chapter. And before you know it, all of a sudden you look and go, wow, this really worked well. And here's a little tip on writing. Some people are like, do we need to do a writing retreat? Do I need to, block out a week or a month to finish a book? Here's what a writing friend of mine, Eric Van Alstyne, said, and he taught me this when I was first learning to write, is to just write every day. Okay. Don't worry about feeling like you got to have a weekend writing trip. Write 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, however much time you can carve out, maybe more or less on different days, but create a space where you're going to write every day. And here's the beauty. When you have the chapters laid out like we've got and the buckets that are kind of in place, you can actually write a little bit at a time here and there and not feel like, oh man, where was my train of thought? I totally lost it. Now I got to re-get my head into the book. No, you can just jump in quick, throw a few thoughts in, jump out. Okay, another chapter, jump in, throw a few thoughts in, jump out. It's a really great way to do it. Write a little bit every day. Watch how this thing takes shape. Before you know it, man, you've carved out this amazing book with a lot of really, really great content. We'll talk a little bit about editing and design in this next session.